Hey, it's Lauren. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another episode of Tuesday Tea Talks. If you're new here, it's so nice to meet you. My name is Lauren. I post videos 3 times a week on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And every now and then on a Tuesday, we dedicate it to Tuesday Tea Talks. So please make sure before we get started that you hit the thumbs up button on this video and of course hit that subscribe button. It really helps out my channel and I appreciate it so much. Come and join our little community here. And without further ado, let's get into today's topic. Actually first, as usual, we must discuss tea. So I'm drinking this tea out of my, can you see? My Vancouver Starbucks mug. If you didn't know this, I used to live in Vancouver. And I'm having a black tea today. I've been up since like 3. And I'll explain why in this video. So, I've been kind of struggling with how to talk about today's topic because I'm not trying to make it about me. But I also just want to share, like, I really try to be honest with you guys on this channel and share the good and the bad, and this was not a good week for me and I wanted to talk to you about it, but again, like, I don't want to make it all about me, but there are takeaways from this story that I think are helpful and beneficial, so that's kind of why I'm choosing to share. Essentially, this past Monday, or last Monday when you're watching this video, David and I were woken up at 1:30 in the morning. We were woken up from blood-curdling screams, essentially. We woke up to screaming that sounded like it was coming right outside of our window. So we got up and we looked through our window and we saw this woman standing at the passenger side door of an SUV screaming at the top of her lungs. So we both jump out of bed, we grab our phones, getting ready to call 911, and then we come into this room and look out the window. And we see even closer and she's starting to scream help. So she's screaming at the top of her lungs, she's screaming help, and then there's these 2 guys. It was dark and they'd had their backs turned, so I didn't see their faces or anything. But essentially, we came into the room, she was still at the passenger side door screaming, and then I turned to look at David because he was on the phone with the 911 operator and we were just trying to explain what was going on. And then the next time I looked out the window, she was on the driver's side but in the back seat, and these 2 guys were punching and beating and shoving this woman into the back of this car as she's screaming for help. And I have never been so scared in my entire life. Like, I could not believe this. I was witnessing an abduction, like a kidnapping. I was freaking out. And this woman, like, oh my gosh. So we're on the phone with the cops. I guess it woke up our whole building. Everyone was calling 911. And then I looked to David for a second and then I looked back to the window and the car was gone. Like, they threw her in the car and they drove away with her. So because of the amount of calls that came in for this woman, I guess it had been a really busy night. They bumped up this call to the top of their list and they sent cops out right away. And thankfully, they found her. So there is I don't want to use the word happy ending because that doesn't sound right, because there's nothing happy about what this poor woman went through, but she was found, she was safe. They arrested the 2 men. So we didn't know this at the time, but we had seen that, like, David went outside because he saw there was a bunch of people outside and she had dropped her wallet, like her purse, on the ground. And I don't know if she did that on purpose. That was my first thought, was like, okay, if you want to be identified, because no one knew who this screaming woman was. All you knew was what you saw of how she looked. So her purse was on the ground, so she could be identified. And I guess when she got in the car, she like sneakily called 911, and so the cops were able to track her, like phone, GPS, I don't know, and they found her 10 kilometers away, which doesn't sound very far, but in Edmonton, because it's so flat, like 10 kilometers is far. But they found her and they arrested the 2 guys I'll be honest with you, after all of that, so I feel like anytime you're in like crisis mode, your adrenaline is going and you're not fully you're not really reacting the same way you normally would. So in our minds, it was like, we have to get on the phone with the cops. We have to help this woman. Like, we were just kind of thinking like, what's the next step here? Remember your story. Remember everything that you saw. What color was the car? What did she look like? We were trying to remember all these details. And then after everything was found out, I just kind of lost it. I won't lie to you. Like, I felt so unsafe in my home. This happened literally on the street outside my window. Yeah, that was kind of what happened. David had talked to the cops and he had said, after they came and told everyone that they'd found her, he was like, I know you can't tell me anything. He's like, but we live here and we just want to know, like, was this a kidnapping? Was this a domestic issue? Like, what can you tell us? And he said, you know, I can't tell you much, but they were known to each other. So it seems like the three of these people knew each other. It doesn't make it any better, but at least we knew that it wasn't a random kidnapping. Like, this woman didn't live on our street. These men didn't live on our street. They didn't live anywhere near us. But just witnessing it, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I've had a lot of trouble going to bed and being alone in this home because I just every time I close my eyes, I hear her screaming and I picture these men shoving her and beating her into the back of this car, and I just think how scared she must have felt. You know, nothing happened to us. This woman was the victim. But it just got me thinking, you know, I think it affected me so much because as a female, and if you agree with this or if you know what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments below. But I felt like I was witnessing my worst fear. Like, my worst fear is being taken or kidnapped by someone. Like, every time I get into an Uber, every time I'm walking down the street alone, like, I am always on alert because you just don't know. And I feel like as a female, you just have these fears ingrained in you that every man you see is gonna wanna take you. And I know that's not true, but that's just kind of how I feel. But I think the big takeaway from this is that I was so thankful and grateful to the amount of people on our street that got up and called the police. We had a bunch of people in our building. We had a bunch of people in the buildings across the street. Everyone was calling the cops, and because of the high amount of calls, they pushed this to the top of the list. It helped them take her call more seriously because I don't even know if this woman could even speak while she was on the phone. Like, what if it was just I just have to call, because they have to answer every call, right? So if you're ever in a situation where you feel like you should call for help, do it. I think it's better to call and be wrong than to not call at all. You know, you could assume, oh, they're drinking, they're fine, they're just, you know, thought, oh, well, there's someone else will call, it's not my responsibility. If you thought like that, then help would never come. So I just think my big takeaway from this is to remember everything, take down all of the details, write down everything that you see. Don't speak to anyone else until you get your story down, because it's so easy to get around a group of people and then all of your stories kind of become convoluted. Write down all of these details, call 911 and let them know everything, because it could be nothing, but it could be something. And I think that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this. And just to share it, like, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably noticed that I've barely been active and I've just been kind of processing it. Like, I didn't even want to be alone in our apartment that morning. So David brought me and Reese, our dog, into work. And even now at night, like, every time I try to go to sleep, I picture it. Like, I can't read anymore. I'm in this habit again of like watching something funny to fall asleep to so that my brain isn't thinking. And then, you know, I woke up at 3 this morning and I couldn't get back to sleep because every noise I heard, I was overanalyzing. So I'm definitely gonna go, I'm booking an appointment with my therapist because I think that it's good to talk this out and come up with some coping mechanisms, because I don't want this one incident to change how I am and how I feel. But I just think about what this poor woman must have been thinking in that moment and how scared she must have been. And I just feel like if you're ever in a situation like that where you know that you feel like something is wrong, call 911 and encourage other people to call too. Yeah, that was kind of, I don't mean to make this a sad or uncomfortable Tuesday Tea Talks, but my goal was to share everything with you guys, the good and the bad. And this was a bad week, and this was a really horrible, horrible thing that David and I both witnessed, and we're both still dealing with it. David feels okay knowing that she was found and these two men were taken in, but for some reason the fear is still lingering with me. But I'm gonna seek therapy, and I'm gonna work on it. And you know, like I said, what matters is she's safe, and the important takeaway from all of this is to always call for help. But that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to hit subscribe. It really, really helps my channel. I'm working so hard at growing this little YouTube family, and every single one of you are important to me, and I appreciate. Oh, and there's Nibs, and there's her butt. Nibbies. She was the best therapy cat that night. Like, after everything happened, I lost it, and I was sobbing into her, and she was just purring away and taking it, and I was like, thank you. And Reese was so good. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.